Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the next class section of study circle. We have started reading the Quran to understand its meanings, and in the last session I had completed a discussion of verses until 16th verse of Surah Al Baqarah, the second chapter of the Quran. We shall start from verse 17 today. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge in Allah the God from the evil whisperings of Satan, the rejected one. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah the God, whose mercy is profound, whose kindness is forever. مَثَلُهُمْ كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي اسْتَوْقَدَ نَارًا. Their example is like the example of someone اسْتَوْقَدَ نَارًا, who kindled fire. Now, the Almighty described the attitude, the unacceptable, unfortunate attitude of those who did not accept the Almighty's message, did not respond to it properly, and mentioned that essentially there are two types of people. Those who have already rejected the message. They have rejected the message in a manner that they have gone beyond all possibilities of reform, of correcting themselves. Their description was mentioned in verses 6 and 7, and the Almighty declared that their hearts have now been sealed. There is no possibility for them to return. In the next few verses that we studied in the last session, starting from verse 8 till 16, the Almighty described the attitude of some people living in Medina who were under the influence of Jews who did not accept God's message coming in the form of the Quran through the Prophet, may God's blessing on him, and mentioned what their attitude was. Now, the Almighty is describing both these groups, their attitude, through examples. Sometimes a reality is more effectively clarified through examples because detailed description is properly and effectively summed up in the form of a picture, a description which you can imagine and understand what exactly is happening. So the Almighty says, مَثَلُهُمْ, this example, كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي اسْتَوْقَدَ نَارًا, is the example of someone who kindled fire. Now here, this mention is actually talking about the Prophet, may Allah's blessing on him. He came with God's message, which metaphorically is light. So there was a fire kindled and atmosphere to be lightened up. فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ, then when it lightened its environment, mahal, the surroundings got lightened up, ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ, God took away their light, that is, their ability to see. It all of a sudden became dark for them. وَتَرَكَهُمْ فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ, and He left them in utter darkness in a way that they could not see. They are unable to see anymore. This is the description of the people who had already rejected God's message, about whom in verse 7 the Almighty says, Khatam Allahu ala qulubihim. God has sealed their hearts. Their hearts have been locked. They have been rusted. They cannot use them positively for the purpose of acknowledging the truth and understanding God and His message. So, here is an example of somebody who kindled light in a certain place, in an environment, but then what happened was that God Almighty took away the light from some people and He left them in utter darkness in a manner that they cannot see anymore. Summun, hukmun, umyun, fahum la yarji'un. They are deaf, they are dumb, they are blind, so they will never ever return. They are not going to return. That is, they have become now completely devoid of any possibility of reforming and correcting themselves. Khatam Allahu ala qulubihim. Their hearts have been sealed. The same reality has been described in some other words. That is, someone, they have become deaf. That is, they've got ears. They can hear voices. They can actually hear people talking to them. But the real message is what they don't understand. In other words, they are in reality dumb. They are in reality deaf. These ears God provided us with so that we listen to what others are saying and we are able to understand the truth. Are not being utilized for knowing the truth, then they are useless. They are of no real purpose. Bukmun, they are dumb. That is, they've got tongues. They were given the ability to speak, but their speech was meant for them to declare, to promote the truth. But they did everything but acknowledge and promote truth. So their tongues are as good as tongues of those who are dumb, who cannot speak. So this speech that they are now making worthless in the eyes of the Almighty. Omyun, they are blind. They see the word, but they don't see the reality. Fahum la yarji'un, so they are not going to return. In other words, the Almighty provided them with abilities to understand the truth, to hear it, to speak it, and to see it. Because they didn't do it, and they continued ignoring the truth, they are now in a position where they would not be able to return towards the right path, towards the truth. أَوْ كَسَيِّبٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ. Now another example is being given. That is, their example is the example of rainfall, min as-samai, which is being poured down from the sky. Fihi zulumatun wa ra'dun wa barq. In it, that is, in that rainfall, in those clouds, there is darkness, there is thunder, and there is light. That is, the usual rainfall with all its is actually being imagined, is being put across as a scenario. يَجْعَلُونَ أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ مِنَ الصَّوَاعِقِ حَذَرَ الْمَوْتِ. They, that is the people whose example is being given, they thrust their fingers in their ears, مِنَ الصَّوَاعِقِ حَذَرَ الْمَوْتِ, because of fear of death, because of thunderclaps. That is, the sound of the thunderclaps is so strong that fearing their death, they thrust their fingers in their ears. Wallahu muhitum bil kafirin. And God has completely encompassed these disbelievers. That is, they don't realize, but God is completely in control of them. They will not be able to run away from Him. Yakadul barqu yakhtafu absarahum. The lightning is very close to snatching away, taking away their sight, their ability to see. Kullama adha'a lahum mashaw fihi. As and when it clears the way, it brightens their path. Mashaw fihi. They start walking in it. وَإِذَا أَظْلَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ. And when it darkens upon them, they stop. They stop walking. That is, the second example is the example of, again, the same message. The message of the Quran, which required these people to believe in it. But it was not a message that showed them a way which was easy to traverse. It has its difficulties, challenges, trials. So, the Quran talks about within this rainfall, which is very useful, Maran, thunder, barq and lightning. Now the idea is that these people were given to go through the motions of the trial, to overcome the difficulties, so that ultimately they come out with flying colors. Their faith gets strengthened, their character becomes even more strong, and they are able to impress the Almighty. This was the purpose of the test. It had rainfall was good for them. It had very useful contributions to make. But rainfall wasn't an unmixed blessing. It was accompanied by certain challenges and difficulties. What they did was that instead of facing those challenges, they thrust their fingers in their ears and they were fearing death. That is, instead of understanding that this is a great blessing and what it accompanies is something that we will take with courage and with gratitude to the Almighty, that His sent is brilliant, and whatever it accompanies, we are prepared to face it. They started looking at the difficult side, the darker side of the picture. They started complaining about the difficulties that they are facing in the way of faith, in the way of the right path. Yakadul barqu yakhtafu absarahum. Lightning is close to take away their sight. That is, the difficulties that they are facing in the path of truth and which they are avoiding is very likely to take away their complete faith. It might take away their sight. كُلَّمَا أَضَاءَ لَهُمْ مَشَوْا فِيهِ. As and when it brings light, it brightens their way. مَشَوْا فِيهِ. They start walking in it. That is, as and when the path of righteousness gives them some worldly relief, they take it gladly. They have no problems with it. They start walking in it. However, وَإِذَا أَظْلَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ. But when it darkens upon them, it casts darkness upon them, قَامُوا. They just stop. They don't understand why is it dark. They don't realize that the path of truth and the path of faith has its own difficulties, challenges, trials. But they don't realize it. They just stop. They wonder why is it happening. Why is it that I am going through difficulties? Why should I not be getting all the blessings of life? that others are getting. Mashawfi, إذا أظلم عليهم قاموا ولو شاء الله, had it been Allah's will, لذهب بسمعهم وأبصارهم, had it been God's will, He would have taken away their ability to hear and their ability to see. كل شيء قدير. Indeed, God has, that is, God is the one who is the master of the entire existence. And if people are going through difficulties, it's because He wants to test them. He wants them to be tested. And nobody can raise any objections. Nobody can ask God to do differently. God knows what people are capable of doing, what their capacity is, and He is the one who decides about people what kind of trials they must go through. So, at the moment, these people are still going through the same path, the path of trial, the path of test. But very soon, if they continue to behave in the wrong manner, if they continue to do things which are undesirable, if they continue to ignore the message of God, He might take away their ability to see. He might take away their faith. So God has control over everything. In other words, the Almighty is warning these people whose attitude is not good, that they still have a chance. Right now what they're doing is that they're not facing the trial properly. If they continue doing it, they might also lose faith. They might also lose all possibilities of getting guided. Right now, they still have an opportunity, so they should better avail it. After mentioning the example of these two types of people who responded negatively to the message of God, the Almighty has gone on to invite another group of people who were present in Medina. Those people who were polytheists, who belonged to the group of Arabians who were influenced by the polytheistic way, the people of Quraysh, who were initially the followers of Ibrahim and Ismail alayhimus salam. But at some point in time in their history, they drifted away from the right path and they started following polytheistic ways, which became more popular, and gradually they became a part of their tradition, and people started following them emotionally because it really was now for them a part of their tradition, a part of what their forefathers were doing. The Almighty, through His last message, invited the entire society of Arabia, including the people of Quraysh in particular, to come back to the right way of monotheism, Tawheed, to follow the message that was brought by their ancestors, Ibrahim and Ismail alayhimus salam. So, the invitation has been extended to the people, the polytheists who were living in Medina. After talking about believers, good believers in the first part, in the first few verses, then those who were complete disbelievers who had rejected the faith in the second part, and the people who were dangling somewhere in the middle, bordering on hypocrisy, they're mentioned in the third part. Now the Quran is inviting the polytheists of Medina to have faith. The Almighty says, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, u'budu rabbakum allazi khalaqakum, worship your Lord, allazi khalaqakum, the one who created you. وَالَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِكُمْ, as well as those who came before you. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may rescue yourself from punishment. That is, the Almighty is asking them in a very clear tone the requirement to believe in one God and to worship Him alone, and to do away with the polytheistic tendencies, rituals that they had adopted from their ancestors. Why? Because God is the one who created them, and He's the one who created their ancestors. So it is but natural that God should be worshipped and nobody else, because He is the one who has created everyone. Allazi ja'ala lakumul arda firasha. Worship the God who made for you this earth a level ground, was-samaa bina, and the sky a ceiling, a canopy. Wa-anzala minas samaa'i ma'a, and He sent down from the sky water. He poured water from the sky. فَأَخْرَجَ بِهِ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ رِزْقًا لَكُمْ. Then He brought out from the soil fruits, vegetables, crops, رِزْقًا لَكُمْ, for your sustenance, so that you may survive. فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا. So do not ascribe with gods other partners. وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Even though you know it. You know that it's not true. You know that this understanding that God has partners has no basis. So don't ascribe partners with God. It's not a part of your nature. It's unnatural, and therefore do away with it. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا. Now, this message was sent to them through the Quran, which had claimed to be God's word. The Almighty is saying that if you don't accept this message, which is claiming to be from God, and you have a doubt about it, فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ. Then bring forth a surah like it. That is, you think that this message is not from God, and what you're being told is not what God is telling you to do. Then you have a very simple process to follow in order to silence this voice of the Quran, in order to negate the claim that it's from God. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا. And if you are in any doubt regarding what we have revealed on our servant, فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ. Then you bring a surah like it. That is, any one surah like the surah of the Quran. وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ. And you invite all your supporters, witnesses, except God. In kuntum sadiqeen. That is, if you think that the Quran is not God's word, you have a very simple process to follow. And that process is that you bring forth a surah like the Quranic surah, like any Quranic surah. And if you do so, then the Quranic claim of being from God is going to be nullified. It would not remain effective anymore. This was a significant challenge. Why? Because this challenge was put across to a society which was in trouble. It was in trouble because of the Quran. The Quran was very clearly, strongly, and effectively telling people that the religion that is being followed by the people of Mecca and its surroundings, by the leaders of Quraysh, is a false religion. It has got no basis. And what the Quran is saying is God's word. Obviously, the people who were very fond of their forefathers and their traditions, who knew that if these traditions would crumble, then their own right to rule, their claim to be the rulers of Arabia, is also going to fall down, because then the kind of system they had created through polytheism, where they arranged for statues of tribe in Arabia to be there in the house of God, and this was a political move to make sure that every tribe is satisfied and they all feel comfortable that they are being represented in the house of God. If polytheism is blown apart, then they're going to be in trouble. Not only their traditions, not only their religion, but their rule is also going to be in serious jeopardy. So, if you are in any doubt about what we have revealed unto our servants, bring forth a surah like it. These people should have been very desperate to respond to the Quranic challenge. Why? Because, as I said, the Quran had created lots of difficulties for them, for the leadership of Quraysh, etc. The other significance of this challenge was that this challenge was being put across to people living in a society which was very proud of its language, about the command they had on language. They had some outstanding poets and orators amongst their ranks. These people were their heroes, celebrities. They used to always compare the different presentations, poetical presentations of their poets, and the one Qasida ode that would be considered the best of the year would get the honor of being described as a muallaqa, the one that's hung. This muallaqa used to be hung on the wall of Kaaba. Such was the keen interest that the society had in its language, in the brilliant, effective, stunning poetry and oratory that their poets and orators and the other literary figures, their intellectuals, were capable of coming up with. In came a book in this scenario, presented by somebody who was absolutely brilliant as far as his conduct, his character was concerned. His morals were impeccable, but he had no interest in poetry or oratory. In fact, he did neither know how to read or to write. And he, after having spent 40 years of a very high moral performance, he comes up with a message claiming it to be from God, and it causes difficulty for the society. And here is the challenge that the Quran put across to the people, that if they are in any doubt about the truthfulness of this book, the truthfulness of the claim that it's come from God, then they should bring forth a surah like it. And they're most welcome to call upon the support and help of all people, all jinns, all angels they think they are in contact with, except God, and try their luck to bring forth a surah, a chapter like the Quranic surah chapter, in its beauty, in its effect, in its forcefulness. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا, Then if you are not able to do so, walan tafalu, and most certainly you will not be able to do so, فَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ, then fear the fire whose fuel shall be either humans or stones. That is, such people who have knowingly and deliberately rejected the message of God, they shall be ultimately consigned to the hellfire for this adamant behavior, for rejecting what they know deep down is truth. They're going to be taken to task. They're not going to be spared. And not only them, but those stones also, which they had actually created, had claimed to be representatives of God in the form of statues and idols, they are going to burn in that fire. Uiddat lil kafirin, and it's going to be prepared, this fire is going to be prepared for these disbelievers. So the Quran threw this challenge to the people of Arabia. They could not meet the challenge because they knew that the book is not from, it hasn't emerged from a human being. It's not the work of the Prophet. It's God's book. It was so beautiful, so effective, so full of effect, power, and immense beauty, sublimity, that they would know quite clearly that it's from God. Even today, when you read the Quran, knowing a little, Arabic, little of Arabic, you read some other text in Arabic, and then you all of a sudden start reading Quranic verses, and you would know the difference. It's there for a reader to know and to see. It's unfortunate that we don't know Arabic at all, and that's why we don't get the real effect of it. But the fact of the matter is that when the Quran was revealed and it threw across this challenge, the people who knew Arabic, classical Arabic, which was the kind of linguistic presentation that the Quran was also couched in, they knew immediately that it's not a human effort, it's from God. There was a poet, outstanding poet of that time, who also had his ode, his poetical expression, getting the honor of being hung on the wall of in one of the years. Labid, he converted to Islam. Soon after embracing Islam, he left poetry. Umar radiallahu anhu, at the time of his caliphate, asked Labid as to why he had left poetry. And he said, Abad al-Quran, is it possible after the Quran? In other words, what he said was that I cannot take interest in poetry anymore because of the influence of Quran on me. It's so effective that I don't think that I can say anything compared to the Quran, which can come anywhere close to it. However, because they unfortunately think that everything that is mentioned in the Quran is practically applicable for all times to come. This is a very famous understanding of Muslims, which understanding has got nothing to do with the Quran. You can mention and quote verses after verses that can be clearly shown to specific, meant for only the time when the Quran was being revealed. But there are many people who believe that all verses of the Quran were meant to be applicable for all times to come. Therefore, there were some Muslims in the recent times who put across the same challenge to non-Muslims. As we know that there are some non-Muslim Arabs as well. There are Jew Arabs and there are Christian Arabs. And in this age when Arab Muslims put across this challenge of the Quran to Jew and Christian Arabs, they responded by creating a website, www.surahlikeit.com, in which they put up 4 surahs like Quranic surahs. In response to this response of the Jews and Christians, Muslims raised hue and cry to get rid of this website and started sending messages to Muslims to not go to the website because it was a conspiracy against Islam and Muslims. The fact of the matter is that it was no conspiracy. Let's face it, it were the Muslims who put across that challenge, and the Jews and the Christians did nothing but respond to that challenge. Now it was the time for Muslims to respond to the response of the challenge. But because they had nothing to say, they started shouting, they started creating trouble, and this is what creates problems for our message. Because we are not prepared to accept that what we said was wrong, and we should not have thrown across the challenge in the first place. We don't have those guts. We don't have that humbleness, this ability to speak the truth and acknowledge our failings. This created an ugly, unfortunate situation. My position is that this challenge of the Quran was meant for the people who knew the sublimity, the depth of the Quranic language, the people of Quraysh, the people who were in real trouble as a consequence of the revelation of the Quran. After the Quran got completely revealed and its challenge was never met, and the message of Islam spread across all throughout the Arabian Peninsula and beyond, and centuries after centuries went by, and Islam's message remained fully and completely intact and influencing, impressing people. To throw across the Quranic challenge to the people in the 20th century was a blunder, was in actual fact a decision taken by some well-meaning Muslims who were not aware of the fact that this challenge is not meant for the present times. We don't even know about the beauty and the brilliance of the language, Arabic language, in which the Quranic message is couched. We understand this language, but then there is an environment, an atmosphere where the real strength, beauty and effectiveness of a certain presentation is properly appreciated. That appreciation is still there, but only amongst a few people. Most people who are Arabs cannot appreciate the beauty of the Quran now because they were not trained in the language of the classic Arabic. So my position is that it was a false, it was a big fault, it was a blunder. And the response given by the Jews and the Christians was quite a natural response, even though what they presented, these were 4 apparent surahs which were just copies of the Quran. Some words were changed here and there, but the fact of the matter is that they responded, and the claim was that they would not be able to respond. And the reason why it happened was that Muslims didn't realize that this challenge was meant to be a challenge for only the time when the Quran was being revealed. Now let me translate these verses once again, and then I'll take up some questions if there are any. I started today's reading of the Quran from verse 17 of Surah Al Baqarah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mathaluhum, their example, similitude, kamathal allazi istawqada nara, is the example of somebody who kindled fire. Falamma adat ma hawlahu, then when it brightened its atmosphere, zahaba Allahu bi nurihim, God took away their light, but tarakahum, and left them, fi zulumatil la yubsirun, in darkness, and they could not see. They're not able to see. Summum bukmun umyun fahum la yarji'un. They are deaf, dumb, blind, so they're not going to return. Aw kasayyibin min as-samai. Or their example is the example of a rainfall that pours from the sky. Fihi zulumatun wa ra'dun wa barq. In it are darkness, thunder and lightning. Yaj'aluna asabi'ahum fi azanihim. They thrust their fingers in their ears. Minas sawa'iqi hazar al-maut. Fearing death from the thunderclaps. Wallahu muhitum bil kafirin. God has encompassed all these disbelievers. God is in complete control of these disbelievers. Yakadul barqu yakhtafu absarahum. The thunder is close. The lightning is close to snatching away their sight, their ability to see. Kullama adha lahum mashaw fihi. As and when it brightens their environment, mashaw fihi, they walk in it. Wa iza azlama alayhim, and when it casts shadows, darkness over them, qamu, they stop. Walau sha'a Allahu, had God willed, la zahaba bi sam'ihim wa absarihim, He would have taken away their ability to hear and their ability to see. Inna Allaha ala kulli shay'in qadir. Indeed, God has control over everything. Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, u'budu rabbakum, worship your Lord, allazi khalaqakum, the one who has created you, wallazina min qablikum, and those who came before you, la'allakum tattaqun, so that you may be rescued from punishment. Allazi ja'ala lakum al-arda firasha, the one who made this earth, soil for you like a bed, leveled, was samaa bina, and He made the sky like a ceiling, like a canopy. Wanzala minas samai ma, and He poured from the sky water. Fa'akhraja bihi minas thamarati rizqan lakum, then He brought forth through it crops and fruits and vegetables for your sustenance. فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا, so do not create partners with God, وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, even though you know it. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا, and if you are in any doubt regarding what we have revealed on our servant, فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ, then bring forth a surah like it. وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُمْ, and invite your partners, your supporters, min dunillah, except God, in kuntum sadiqeen, if you are really truthful. فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا, then if you can't do it, وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا, and you will never be able to do it, فَاتَّقُوا النَّارِ, then fear the fire, وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ, whose fuel shall be either humans or stones. أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ, it has been prepared for these disbelievers. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم. Now let me have a look at the questions if there are any. Do we have a question over here? Nope. Can Satan mislead us if we are on the right path and cause us worry and grief? Satan can try to mislead us even when we are on the right path. That's what his job is. That's what his job description says. So it can make attempts to take us away from the right path. But if we are sincere in our commitment to God, to His message, then Satan would fail. Satan would not be able to succeed. However, if our commitment is weak, if we have only committed ourselves to following the right path in a shallow manner, not with proper commitment, then obviously Satan would succeed. Satan would sometimes succeed temporarily in case of some good people as well. But that's only meant to be a trial. So this life is in actual fact, if viewed from that point of view, nothing but a tussle. It's a competition between us humans and Satan. Satan wants to lead us astray, and we would like to draw away from what Satan is suggesting to us. So the answer to your question is that he can cause problems in your life if you are not prepared to face the challenge of Satan by seeking help from God, by continuing to follow the right track, by fighting against your own ego, your own inner weaknesses. If you are prepared to follow the path of the Almighty as sent by Him through His messengers, then Satan would be defeated. You said fitna is used for persecution. Isn't it also used for fitna on earth, rape, prostitution, etc.? Please explain. Well, a word is used for many different purposes, has many different meanings at times. Which particular meaning a word is conveying in a particular passage, well, its context would decide. The verses that I've translated today before you, which said, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may be rescued from punishment. This is what I translated. But as you know, that the same expression means so that you may become God conscious. كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Fasting has been made obligatory on you as it was made obligatory on the people who came before you, so that you may become God conscious. So it all depends on what the context is. Fitna, when it is used in a context where the Almighty says, for example, al-fitnatu ashaddu min al-qatl. Fitna is even more serious crime, is more condemnable than qatl. Then it means persecuting people because of their religious beliefs and practices. Fitna, when it is used in Surah Al-Ma'idah, where the Almighty is mentioning the punishment of those who yuharibuna Allah wa rasulahu wa yas'awna fil ardi fasada, who are actually fighting against God and His messenger and creating mischief on earth. If the word fitna is used in that particular context, it would mean what the verse is saying, that people are causing mischief on earth and are harming others. The lives, the wealth, and the honor of people is at the mercy of some people. That's also what fitna is. By the way, the word fitna is also used for the purpose of conveying the sense of a trial, a test. Innama amwalukum wa auladukum fitna. Your wealth and your children, they are also fitna. They are a trial, a test. So it all depends on where exactly a particular word is being used, what is the context. Like worrying about dying. Yes, I think if you are asking in the context of satanic whispers, it could be one way that Satan can draw us away from God by making us fearful of death. So I think what we need to do is to reject, to thwart the attempts of Satan by seeking help from God, by reading his message, by thinking about the fact that, death is going to be the end of this world. It would mean the end of our journey, the end of our trial. So let's do as best as we can to function properly and behave in a manner that the Almighty is going to be pleased with our performance. And if we are able to somehow have a feeling, a confidence that what we are doing is going to be acceptable to the Almighty, then hopefully the fear of death is not going to be there anymore, or it's going to be much less. So I think if there is any real strong feeling of fear of death, then it really has to be taken away by working on it, by trying to understand what the problem is, by asking God for help, and by telling ourselves that death is going to be a transfer from this world to another. And I've tried as best as I could in this life to please God, and hopefully God is not going to cause you any harm, because He has promised that وَمَا أَنَا بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ, I'm not going to be unfair to humans at all by the smallest of margins. You see, we humans, if we were to tell somebody that, look here, don't worry, when you will come to my place, you'll be well treated. All that I expect is that while coming to my house, to my residence, don't do anything wrong, knowingly, deliberately, and be rest assured, when you enter my gates, you'll be taken care of. To any ordinary human who is a good person and you have confidence in him or her, when this statement comes to you, you would readily, comfortably walk into the residence of that individual, knowing that the person has given you a promise which he is true to his words, and he's going to follow them. He's going to make sure that the promise is fulfilled. God has promised us. He's not going to be unfair to anyone by the slightest of margins. So there are two possibilities. One is that we have done certain things wrong, knowingly and deliberately. Let's start asking for forgiveness. And God has promised that if we ask for His forgiveness properly, sincerely, He will forgive. The other possibility is that we haven't done anything of that sort. So it's a matter to feel comfortable, to be satisfied with. So there's no reason why we should be fearful of any negative experiences in the life to come. Yes, however, we need to be concerned to make sure that we perform well, to make sure that we don't remain complacent. But an unnecessarily, overly strong fear of death is what needs to be fought against, needs to be taken away through a process of praying to God, through a process of reflection, through a process of following the right path, doing things which are good, and you'll start feeling good about it, and hopefully your departure, my departure, and everybody else's departure from this world is going to be smooth, and inshallah we will find the next world a much better world than this one. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي